Welcome to the screencast, where I'm going to show you how to get started with the Microsoft Windows Multipoint SDK version 1.1. We're going to start by creating a basic WPF application. In this case, I'm going to choose to create a Visual Basic WPF application, but you could also create a C# application and enable it with Multipoint. We're going to call this Multipoint Demo, and this will create our basic project structure that we'd expect when we're building any WPF application. Now, to enable this as a multi-point application, we need to go ahead and add references to the MultiPoint SDK. Here we're going to browse to the SDK, and we're going to browse to the location that it's installed by default. MultiPoint SDK, and you'll see here that there's a bin folder. Within the bin folder, there's a number of DLLs. We're going to add references to all of those as they compose the various different components of the SDK itself. Now, the way that MultiPoint SDK works is that it actually hides the system cursor and replaces it with multiple simulus of cursors. So to do that, we actually need to make sure that our application runs in full screen. This is easily done by setting the window state to maximized, like so. Let's just hop into the code, and we're going to actually trap the loaded event of the window so that we can initialize the SDK. So I'll go over to my events, double click there, which will create me the event handler that I need to use. To make use of the SDK, I'm going to add some import statements at the top of the file. And now I'm ready to get started by actually using the MultiPoint SDK. So I need to go ahead and initialize the SDK, and this basically associates the window that we're actually using with the SDK, so that the SDK can hook into the underlying Windows message pump. Now, one of the things about running an application in full screen and in Multipoint is that Multipoint doesn't work with the standard close and minimize icons that exist on a normal window. So what we need to do is actually provide a way for the application to exit. We're going to do that by trapping the key down event of the main window, and we're going to assume that the default key for escaping or exiting out of the application is going to be the escape key. So here we're going to write some simple code that actually interrogates which key's been pressed, and if it's the escape key, we're going to shut down the application. Now, what we're going to do next is actually trap events where a mouse has been added or removed from the system. In this case, we're going to trap the added event, and what we're going to do is actually assign specific cursors to the mice as they're added to the system. So to start with, we're actually going to add a reference to system.drawing, because we're going to make use of some bitmaps and some images. So system.drawing. And we're also going to add in a cursor resource so that I can actually assign it as the icon for the particular mouse. So I'll go into my project settings, I'll go and add an existing file, and if I go into my pictures, I've already got a cat icon that I can use. And you'll see here that it's got actually a system pointer, it's got a pointer that we can use. So go back to my application, and in here what I need to do is add an event handler for the actual mouse arrival event. So we'll see here that we'll do that. You'll obviously see that I need to create the event handler, and we'll do that by dragging across the mouse connected event. And you'll see here that I'm actually going ahead and retrieving the event information and getting access to the actual device information itself. You'll see that I'm accessing my resources, which is the cat icon that we've just added to the project, and then we're actually converting that from a bitmap into a bitmap image so we can use it as the source for the mouse device's cursor image. So what I need to do is actually add in that method for actually converting between the two, and you'll see here this is fairly straightforward code that actually loads up a memory stream, writes the bitmap out to the memory stream, and then assigns it as a bitmap image. So let's go ahead and actually run this application now. So when this first runs, you'll see that there's a single icon or a single mouse cursor in the top right hand corner. And now when I add in another mouse, you'll see that it's been associated with that new icon, the mouse cursor that I assigned in the code. If I press the escape key, the application exits and comes back to the source code, as we'd expect. So the next thing we're going to do is actually go and actually use one of the built-in multi-point controls, and this is the multi-point button control. To do this, I need to import the multi-point namespace, or multi-point controls namespace. We'll do that by adding a reference like that. And now I can go ahead and create a XAML button, or a multi-point button, that sits on my window. And you'll see here that I've got an event handler for the multi-point click event, and I can navigate through to this event handler, and that will create me the event handler stub that I need. We're going to just create a simple message, so this will update the contents of the button to indicate that it's been clicked. So let's go ahead and run that. And you'll see that when I click on that, it says clicked. Exiting back out to here. Now we're going to do something slightly more sophisticated with the click event. We're actually going to change it so that it freezes the mouse. So we're going to actually make use of some of the multi-point information here. And you can see here in this code we're actually going to interrogate the event args, retrieve the information about the mouse so that we can actually set the contents of the mouse to indicate which mouse was actually clicked on the button, and then we're actually going to disable movement on the mouse. Now, this is particularly useful in a teaching scenario where you want to limit student activity, or you want only the teacher to be able to move into certain areas and things like that. So you can actually control mouse movement and lock mice so that they can't actually interact with the system during certain periods. So let's go ahead and run this now. And what you'll see is as the mice come in here, they get locked, and the contents of the button updates to indicate which mouse was actually clicked. Now, the last thing I want to show you is how to actually get access to some more of the multi-point events, so that if you're building your own control, for example, or even on the main window, if you want to actually access some of the in-depth multi-point events, for example, the mouse move event, you can actually implement a set of interfaces that actually provide that information back down to your control. So here we're going to implement the iMultiPoint mouse events interface. Go ahead and press enter, and that will actually add in the appropriate events at the bottom of the file here. Going back to the top, what we then need to do is actually provide an event, attach an event handler to the multi-point mouse move event. So here we can see we're actually adding that as a routed WPF event handler, and we'll actually create the event handler like so. And again, you'll see that we're accessing the multi-point mouse event information, we're getting the device, and then we're actually updating the button content with the location of that mouse. So let's go ahead and run that. And you can see that as we move the different mice, the information in the button is actually updated to reflect the current location of the mouse. So what you've seen here is how to get started with a multi-point SDK. You can see that we can very quickly build up an application that responds to multiple mice. There's multiple mice cursors. We can attach to events as mice are added and subsequently removed. We can update the UI based on mouse activity. And of course, you can see that the way that the multi-point application works as a whole. Thank you for your time, and if you have any questions, please feel free to contact the MultiPoint forums and ask questions there. Thanks.